Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking to Gabe Karp, partner at Detroit Venture Partners. Gabe, good to see you, man. Excited to talk to you about Detroit Venture Partners, business, conflict, and maybe a little bit of the same holistic doctor we go to, Dr. Lou.
Good to be here.
And so I'm looking forward to talking with you. I want to dive into first, we're sitting here, it's November 17th. We are in the second wave of COVID. You are a partner at Detroit Venture Partners. You are part of all of these startups and companies that are growing. And I think right now there's a lot of people who are looking at their world and saying, you know what, maybe it's time that I start something. Maybe it's time that I actually take this business that's been whispering in the back of my head all these years and do something about it. And so to that person, I want to start there. What is your recommendation to that person who wants to just have more balanced time, control their time, and start living their passion?
Well, yeah, so it's interesting. If they want to have more balanced time, maybe a startup isn't
right. Well, that's
right. Yeah. But I would say, and I've gotten this question a lot in these times of COVID, about starting new businesses. And I said to anyone, if you're thinking about doing it, give it a real thorough, hard look, and think about what it is you want to do, how you want to. What your vision looks like when it's realized. And it's not so much that you should kind of wake up in the morning and realize like, wow, I really want to do this. You want to wake up in the morning and you realize, I can't not do this. This must be done. I cannot deprive the world of my awesome idea and my awesome business. And it's that level of passion that is really important, because right now we're dealing with potentially the second, some say it's the third, if you look at the graphs, might be the third COVID wave. And it's hard. I was on the phone with the CEO this morning, whose business services a lot of public venues like gyms and bars and clubs and that sort of thing. And we're sort of talking about how to navigate this new problem that's probably going to last for possibly 3 months. And just to use that as an example, in that conversation, there's zero question, zero thought about, hey, is this something we should continue doing or anything else? That doesn't even come into the picture, because this CEO, for years I've been talking to him, he doesn't see any other option in life. He must do this. And if someone comes along and says, hey, you can get a great job at this company and get all these perks and everything else, it's just, the concept is so foreign to him, he just wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah.
He's so passionate about the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think passion is so important. And it's absolutely needed, especially if that passion fulfills you, right, which it sounds like in this case it is. So I love that question of what you can't do. I want to talk a little bit more about the companies, right? So you got, Detroit Venture Partners is a Detroit-based venture capital firm that backs early stage technology companies. And so I want to really talk about what technology means today. Studies show pre-COVID that 85% of the jobs that exist in 2030 don't exist today. And so we're going to see pre-COVID, a massive change in this decade in front of us. And technology seems to be having a shorter and shorter shelf life because things seem to be changing so fast. And so when you're a technology company today, it's like that commercial where they're like, they look up, they have 4G or whatever it is, and then they look up and they're like introducing the next iPhone. And so what do you have to do to stay ahead of the curve, ahead of real time, when you're a technology company today?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one that, by the way, is answered differently depending on how old you are.
Right.
And I really mean that, because, and this stuff is always very interesting to me, so forgive me if I geek out on it a little bit.
No, geek out. I think this is a geek out moment.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the rate of technology advancement, how quickly it's evolving. If let's say pick the year 1500. You look at from the year 1500, and by the way, 1500. Let's go to the year 1000. If you look from the year 1000 up to the year 1500, not much done. I mean, I don't know, maybe gunpowder. That was about it.
Right.
And then when you get from 1500 to, let's say, the late 1800s, you got some pretty big ones in there. You got electricity. You've got real plumbing. Like indoor plumbing.
Yeah.
And you have the steam engine. You've got the combustion engine. But the number of really groundbreaking inventions and advancements that you see, you can count them on two hands.
Yeah.
Then you start from like 1900 moving forward. This pace starts to pick up. But once you hit, the late 90s and you get into the early 2000s, the rate increased exponentially, and it continues to increase exponentially. So our kids, you and I have kids, around the same age. When they're adults, they will have grown up amidst like crazy change that every couple of years, the whole world is just different.
Yeah.
So it's hard. And I noticed that it is hard for people our age to think about that. I wish I had a whiteboard. If you look at like the curve of technology as it goes up, the curve actually follows a path like this. If this is, I don't know what's right and left, but let's say this is the past and this is the future.
Right.
So it kind of goes at a nice ramp like this, and then you get to the present day, and now it starts going like this. And this straight up hockey stick, and we're right here. And when you're right here on a hockey stick curve, your only perspective is looking backwards. So you're like, well, no, I'm looking at the past several thousand years, and things haven't changed that much because we don't actually see the next 20 years, because in the year, what'd you say, in the year 2030, 80% of the jobs?
To the year 2030, pre-COVID studies showed that 85% of the jobs that exist do not exist today. And in my opinion, COVID just accelerated that.
Right. I think you're right. So back to your question of, okay, how do you think about technology and what are the kinds of things you do? Like what perspective you need to have in order to have a technology-based business? Well, number one, I think all businesses, all of them need to be thinking about this, because the technology of businesses that we invest in and that I work with, they generally service all the other businesses and consumers. So it's this mindset of constant adaptation. It used to be you could pick a business model and run with it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, and you'd be fine with that same model the whole time. Those days are gone. That's just not going to work anymore.
Right.
And maybe I could tweak that a little bit and say the business model might be able to endure, but the manner in which you go about delivering whatever your product and service is, and the manner in which your clients and consumers consume your product and service are going to change dramatically.
Yeah.
So it's that nimbleness, it's that ability to adapt and see as the winds change, to be able to make dramatic shifts in your business to account for it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the shifts, the nimbleness, the delivering the products to and the services, the way consumers receive it, and how you. I want to dive into the messaging for these companies, specifically the technology companies that you predominantly work with, because I think the messaging has to be almost months ahead, but not too far out of the law of proximity for people to understand exactly what the companies are doing. And so how do you message and then keep it going to kind of keep people along the continuum of growth while not giving it, without going too far out for people to be like, I don't even know what that means.
Wait, I'm sorry. Do you mean the messaging to like your internal team members or to your clients, or
to your clients? The messaging to the clients, to the consumer. Sorry, to
your clients. The good news is I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to message that much to your clients, because internally, as technology changes and you come, let's say you primarily, let's pick what is now a very old example. but let's say you conduct a lot of your business through your website and that people come to your website. But then you launch a mobile site that basically does the same thing, or you have an app that basically does the same thing. And perhaps it does it in an improved and more efficient way to the benefit of not only your customers, but also you. You don't need to roll those things out and message those things out to your customers, your clients, until you're ready to deploy them. I would say if you're excited about something and you know that there's external demand for having a mobile version of whatever your service is, then yeah, message it out, say coming soon, just so you don't lose those customers who are going to go find someone else who's already doing it. Yeah. But as a general rule, those things are like surprise and delight events.
Yeah.
Good news. All the stuff you've been doing with us before just got better.
Yeah.
Download this or log into that, or however you want to. Yeah. Whatever you're going to position it as.
Well, I love what you're talking about. It amazes me how successful coming soons could be. The teasers of the coming soon really work, and I feel like people just kind of, love that little taste. So it gives them kind of like the mental preparation, right? Whether it's for technology, whether it's for a movie, it doesn't matter. But I want to talk to you about, you're talking about mobile sites, you're talking about websites. To me, once this was coming and then COVID came, this decade is going to be, I think, a decade of e-commerce like we've never seen it, not just for the retail, but for professional service firms as well. And so can you talk a little bit about, as you're working with all these technology companies, what the face of e-commerce for every company out there needs to be looking like internally and externally?
Sure. Well, I think every company, even brick and mortar storefronts, are going to need to come up with an e-com solution for the same stuff, just because you need to be where the eyeballs are looking,
right?
Because the way you're going to draw them into your store is going to be through e-com also. But so, there's one company I'm on the board of, it's called Marksant, and they're into the augmented and virtual reality space. I would say it's less specific than that. They're in the 3D visualization space, and they're targeting home furnishings and home remodeling and that sort of thing. So the idea of, hey, I want to buy a chair. I want to buy a chair for this room. If I can, with my phone, hold it up, turn it over there, and just in my camera view, put a chair in that room, and it looks as though it is actually there because it's a three-dimensional thing, and it fits the size. That's an amazing experience, and I can do that experience in the comfort of my own home and have the same level of confidence that I'm buying the right thing, that it's going to look right and it's going to fit well, as I would be in the store. And I can't go to the store right now because we got a pandemic. So that's an example of some of the technological things I think we're going to see coming out that becomes mainstream in the next couple of years.
And what about AI and virtual reality? I did virtual reality at this one place where, I had the goggles on. I walk into an elevator. I go 100, stories up. There's a plank with
walk on the plank.
I could not walk on the plank. I mean, I rationally knew I just had goggles on. I could not walk the plank. Then they put donuts on the plank, and I literally crawled. My brain could not comprehend. I crawled, and then they have you flying around New York City, and I would accidentally hit a building, and I almost fell down. So it is wild. So virtual reality, artificial intelligence seems to be in more and more things every single day. How are we going to start to see that in technology playing a significant role as we move forward?
Sure. Well, virtual reality, I think that's a little further off because the hardware needs to get smaller and more powerful and just easier to use and cheaper. But by the way, it's coming. It's coming. I mean, I've gone through demos where it's what they call it, mixed reality, where I had on some glasses, but I could see through them. But in the physical room I was in, it was mixed because there were virtual things interacting with physical things. So, for example, there was a there was a lamp, a floor lamp that was physically in the room and it was real. And Tinkerbell was flying around the room, obviously not really, but virtually. And I was able to direct Tinkerbell with my hands and with hand motions. And I was able to have Tinkerbell fly over to the lamp, tap the lamp, and the lamp turned on physically in the room. So it's that integration between virtual and physical objects that
doesn't even make sense. I can't even comprehend that.
Well, so let's take Tinkerbell out of this situation. Let's say I'm physically in the room and I'm wearing these goggles and I want more light. I can just point to the light and snap my fingers or do some motion with my hand, even though the light is 20 feet away, and it will turn on.
So I interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago, Gabe, who does artificial intelligence. And he was telling me that before COVID, Metro Airport was about to launch these screens that you see at the airport in Detroit. And that if you and I were standing next to each other, we would see different things on the screen. So it's kind of similar in alignment. Yeah.
Right. We would see different things on the screen for different reasons. One, because maybe they just wanted to make different cool experiences for people. But two, because artificial intelligence recognizes who you are and who I am.
Yeah.
And it serves us up content on that screen that is unique to us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Social Dilemma yet. I highly recommend it. It's Netflix documentary. And it's about all the AI that is used in social media that is unfortunately doing really bad things to us mentally, emotionally. Not only teenagers, because I think it's bad, but even adults. Because the AI is being leveraged by companies who have a profit motive.
Yeah.
The only thing they want to do is to keep you engaged. They're going to the lowest common denominator. What makes you afraid? What makes you angry? And who you can blame for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's an unfortunate, that leads to a lot of conflict.
Yeah. Let's talk about conflicts for a minute. You know, I know one of the things you talk a lot about is conflict. And I think, you know, between companies and people trying to kind of figure out how to communicate in a remote world, people working from home, lots of distraction, lots of inner conflict, business conflict, you know, figuring out what people want to do with their lives. People have been laid off. People have been, you know, there's just conflict on so many different levels for so many people. And I know one of the things you talk about in keynotes around Tree is conflict, how to embrace conflict in a healthy way. And so if you can give some guidance, both for company owners and for people, on how to kind of just unpack conflict in today's world as we sit here, November 17th, 2020, I think that would be really beneficial.
Sure. You know, I mean, that's pretty open-ended. So cut me, I'll try to keep it succinct, but cut me off and change the subject when you need to. But one of the biggest misconceptions is that conflict is a negative thing that should be avoided at all costs. And let's talk about in the context of, let's say, business, although everything I'm saying applies to business and personal lives and family and friends and everything. Yeah. But the instinctive response to conflict that human beings have is to avoid it, or to get rid of it, or remove it immediately. So that leads to a lot of bad behavior. You know, I think one of the again, that biggest misconception is that it's a bad thing. The reason is that it's a misconception is that when you adopt a different perspective and you see conflict as something that propels you forward as an individual, propels your career forward, propels your relationships with the people you love forward, drives your business, improves, you know, how you work with clients, that conflict is this thing that enables all of that, and you embrace it in a healthy way. The results they really are amazing. And one of the things that is very helpful to understand is where the origins of conflict are. You know, we're human beings. We've been socialized to avoid conflict from a very young age. We're taught to, we sugarcoat feedback. We soften bad news. maybe our parents, when we grew up, told us, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And that has today been, for a lot of us, been sort of misconceived as, well, don't be rude. Don't call out problems with other people. Don't call out the faults of other people. And that's, I think that's bad. Here's a perfect example. We're having this Zoom call right now. It's not Zoom. We're having this video call right now. If 5 minutes before this, you were walking from the kitchen to sit in your chair right there, and your wife saw you because you just eaten, and you had like a piece of spinach in your teeth, and you're about to go on camera. Let's say it's not your wife. Let's say it's your next door neighbor who just happens to be in your house you're not that close with. And he looks at you and says, well, I don't want to tell me a spinach in his teeth because it's like uncomfortable. I don't want to make him feel bad. But think how cruel that would be to allow you to sit on camera for all this time and have spinach in your teeth. That's the kind of feedback you want to hear.
Correct.
And if I'm in a meeting with a group of people and I say something that rubs somebody the wrong way, or I get maybe a little too aggressive in the meeting and it puts people off and makes people feel bad, I want someone to pull me aside after and say, or even in a moment, and just say, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this, and I don't know if this was your intent, but the result of what you did made so-and-so feel bad.
Yeah. I just want to jump in there for a second, because what you're talking about, I think, is really important. And I think it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of practice for people. One, to rebuild muscle, to break the lineage patterns and things of that nature. But if you look statistically at the power of tone versus words versus physiology, right? A lot of times when I'm doing speaking, I'll ask people kind of, how they are dissected, and most of the people get it wrong, and I think words are the most powerful piece, or the most powerful piece. When really, tone is 38%, physiology is 55%, and the words you say are 7%. So it's the tone and the physiology of how you say something. So as you're talking about conflict, and as you are teaching people about how to embrace it in a healthy way, what's a step, a tool, a strategy, a way that they can really kind of pause and rethink to themselves, hey, I was going to say it like this, but maybe I'll catch myself and say it like this.
Yeah, great question. I call it the shopping list voice. Okay. So let's take a scenario. I'm on the phone with a client who is terminating their contract with my company because someone on my team screwed up, and I'm pissed off. Why? Because I'm human, and that's the kind of thing that naturally would make somebody upset, and it's normal to be angry. I now need to go give feedback to somebody. So let's say I'm just so angry, I slam the phone down, I walk over to that person in front of everybody, and I just launch into hey, I just got off the phone with the client. Yeah. They said you sent deliverables with mistakes in them, and da-da-da-da, and they fired us because you can't figure out how to do your job, and I really launch into that. That is that may be healthy for me, because I've sort of had this cathartic experience where I release all that anger and I go on to the rest of my day feeling a little bit better. But that's not giving feedback. That's just me being a jerk to somebody else, and that's really bad leadership. It's weak. So shopping list voice. John, you say to me, hey, Gabe, I'm running the store. Do you want me to pick anything up? I say, yeah, I want to make a cake. So you can pick up eggs, flour, sugar, milk, frosting, and some sprinkles.
Yeah.
It's dispassionate, very matter of fact. So you can apply that to the same situation. Now, if you're really angry, if you're really angry, you got to go process that anger first. Take a walk around the block, count backwards from 10, punch a pillow, hit the batting cage, do whatever you got to do. So when you go give feedback, you're not coming from as emotional a place, but focus on the shopping list voice.
Yeah.
I just got off the phone with the client. They said you sent them deliverables with mistakes in them. They had to redo your work. They missed the deadline as a result, and they terminated our agreement.
Yeah.
And also another thing that really helps tone is when you have to give negative feedback, use it as an opportunity to reaffirm the person. Yeah. So this horrible thing happened, right? The person's going to feel terrible. And I should add, by the way, let me go back for a second. When I go and yell at somebody, I'm triggering a fight or flight response inside their brain. There's a billion years of evolution hard-coded into our DNA, and there's something called an amygdala response. Without getting too technical about it, when you trigger that response in somebody, neural pathways to that part of the brain where they process things and do complex decision-making, that shuts down. So they literally can't hear the feedback coming. So
can I make one comment on that?
Yeah.
It happens, and you can't even measure how quickly that can happen from the energy of your walk. I mean, I think it's like, and I don't know the exact, but it's like splits of a millisecond where someone can fall into that space. So it's not like it happens, 20 seconds into somebody yelling at you. It happens sometimes even right before. So, you can't even like measure it like this. It happens sooner than this. So I just think it's worth raising an awareness on that for people, because I think it's a really important comment.
Yeah, I actually want to come back to that in a second. Let me just because I have more to say on that. That's interesting. But back to what I was saying that helps tone. When you keep that tone down, you'll stop the triggering of that response, number one. But number two, if you also use this as an opportunity to reaffirm somebody, that also changes your tone. So you give the feedback, right?
Right.
It's a crappy day for that person, but they got to hear it. And then you say to them, you know what? Let's not sugarcoat this. This is horrible, but you're not horrible. You're actually a really smart, intelligent, competent person. There's a great future ahead of you if you want. My hope for you is like that this mess up is the turnaround point in your career. And 6 months from now, people look back on this and they say, wow, ever since he screwed that thing up, and man, he screwed that up. But ever since then, he's been on his game with a great attitude, delivering high quality work. And I want to work with him again. If you enter the conversation with the goal of number one, giving the feedback, and two, letting the person know that it's not the end of the world, it changes a lot of your physiology and your tone and your body language.
Well, and you said it perfectly. And I mean, the only word we can use right now, because this is on social media, is, don't be a jerk. There's a lot of other words we could use in place of that word. And if you got to act that way, then you got to check yourself, because that's more about that person. That's more about you. And so I go into organizations as a coach, and a CEO will bring me in and they'll say, I don't understand why everybody hates me. And I just walk in, I attend a meeting, and in the first 5 minutes, I can tell them why everybody hates them. So it's like everybody's got to just raise their level of awareness. And I think in today's world with remote, Gabe, I just want to comment on this. You gotta, the same level of consciousness that got people to where they are, not get them to where they need to be. Everybody needs to raise their frequency, their vibration, and force themselves to be more aware. Otherwise, they're gonna be out of a job because of just who they are.
Yeah, and one of the issues I've noticed about video meetings, video conferencing, is that you do lose some of the communication that you would have in a physical face-to-face meeting. And even especially when you have a meeting where there are 5-6 people, it's hard to pick your spot to jump in the conversation. There are times, I think, when well-meaning people say things in a meeting that may put someone off, and they recognize it like a split second after it happens.
Right.
And in a physical meeting, you can kind of pull that person aside and say, "Hey, sorry, I didn't mean that."
Yeah.
You can't really do that on a video call. The opportunity isn't there. But that, I did want to comment on this, where you said, how fast you kick into that survival mode.
Right.
It's true. It's milliseconds, and it's actually a really good thing in terms of the survival instinct. If you think about where that comes from, when our ancestors walked out of a cave and saw a saber-toothed tiger, their amygdala kicked into high gear and protected them from the threat. Like, they reacted lightning fast. Deal with it. And it's interesting. I say that, there were other people at the time that didn't react as quickly, and they had a less severe amygdala response, and they would look at a saber-toothed tiger and say, "Oh, it's a saber-toothed tiger. Cool."
Yeah.
And those were not our ancestors.
I love it. I love it.
Scientific word for those people is lunch.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I love it. All right, Gabe, this has been great. A quick speed round with you. Favorite book and why?
Favorite book and why? It's just what I'm reading at the moment. I'm reading a technology book at the moment. It's about lifespan, and it's my favorite at the time because it really is a vision into the future. The guy who wrote it, very world-renowned geneticist, and he and all of his colleagues believe that aging, the process of aging, is actually like a virus. And that at some point between the year 2038 and the year 2031 is where they're targeting it. Someone's going to come up with a cure for this virus. And when he says cure, what he means is that we're going to have therapeutics like at the DNA level. I don't know how familiar you are with like changing DNA in people with therapeutics. Like if you have cancer, you got this sequence of genes. And somehow the sequence changes and then makes you predisposed to cancer, you can get it. Well, they can go in, reorder the sequence of those amino acids, and then you no longer have the cancer. Well, this will turn off that aging mechanism. And he expects not only will your lifespan increase, but your health span will increase.
Wow.
So it's, yeah.
That's cool. That's
supposed to be a lightning round, but
that's cool. What's it called?
It's called Lifespan.
That sounds like a very cool book.
Yeah, it's pretty technical, but it's super cool. This guy doubled the lifespan of mice, like consistently. And not only did he increase the lifespan, you increase the health span. Because no one wants to live to be 100 if you're, decrepit and immobile.
No.
This keeps people really healthy. He says if you're under the age 60 right now, you got a really good shot to living to 120.
Love it. I'll take it. I'll take it all day. Give me the vitamin. As long as Dr. Lou says I can take it, I'm taking it. Best piece of wisdom you ever received?
It sounds so corny and cheesy, but don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Life is just too precious to care about things that,
I agree, and you can never be reminded of that too much. One piece of advice you would give somebody graduating college right now?
Be a sponge and put yourself into situations where you can just have as many experiences as possible.
Yeah.
Just learn from that. I would say from not only for business, but also in life, the people that really succeed are the ones that relate well to others and can relate to a broad range of people.
Yeah, well said. Tell everybody, Gabe, how they can get a hold of you, who your ideal potential clients are, if you're looking to get more early stage technology companies on board, and just how they can connect with you.
Sure. So for a DVP, if early stage technology companies, and it's a little broader than that, Detroit.vc, check us out there, Detroit.vc. I've been doing a fair amount of speaking these days. You can check me out at GabeKarp.com, and that'll show you what I'm up to these days.
Good. Gabe, thanks, man. This was great. Love talking about conflict. I think you gave some killer tools for people to really think about conflict differently. I don't think people think about it in a healthy way like you're talking about. And so to kind of flip the script a little bit and get people thinking, I think is critical. Talking about, that businesses need to be constantly thinking about adapting. And I think really waking up to that sprouting entrepreneur, asking the question, you have to be able to say to yourself, I can't not do this and share it with the world. So some great things. I appreciate your time as always. You're always full of great wisdom and insight. Think community, thanks very much for joining us. If you have any questions for Gabe, check him out at GabeKarp.com. I know you're doing some great speaking, and you got a book coming out soon. We'll have you back when the book is out. And I'll let you close anything you want to say.
No, thanks for having me. It's been fun. You gotta get Dr. Lou on this show one day.
I gotta get Dr. Lou. I will get Dr. Lou. Yeah. All right, that was great, man. Gabe, thanks, man. This was great. Thanks, everybody.
Done. Take it easy.